If you might spare me a moment, Stitch, I would appreciate it.
Right away, Mr. Holmes. I'm just finishing up with Mrs. Rowbottom.
I'll tell you when we're finished, Mr. Rumsey. I'm paying good money and I expect no less than your undivided attention.
What is that racket, Watson?
The treadles of sewing machines, I imagine.
I mean the voices.
Can you not appreciate the dulcet tones of the Orient, Holmes?
My pedestrian mind cannot appreciate what it cannot understand. I'll grow grey before Mrs. Rowbottom is satisfied.
Claim pressing business, national emergency and so on.
Worthless. I know her type. Obstinate as a mule.
A pointed threat might remove her recalcitrance.
Watson, you surprise me. Besides, have you not remarked the size of her handbag? Who knows what she has in there? I beg your pardon, madam. Might I have a brief word with Mr. Rumsey?
No, Mr. Rumsey is not free.
I've decided on a strategy to shift La Rowbottom.
A subterfuge, then. But not too subtle, I hope. It would be lost on her.
She appears to be a woman whose sense of propriety may be vulnerable to judicious tweaking. Follow my lead.
Try not to be too offensive. She's Rumsey's customer, after all.
The fabric of your frock has become a favourite of the demi-monde.
You've seen it elsewhere?
Indeed. Watson, did we not recently see this particular material at the Chelsea Burlesque?
That young woman whom Bingo Oakshott insists on calling his protégé was draped in it. A dress, wasn't it? What there was of it.
You disremember her dress, but she had it on so briefly. No, it was the drawing-room curtains which she wore as a shawl.
Or was it a towel from the loo? Good day to you, madam.
I'm sorry, Stitch. I had to get rid of her.
Oh, I can live without her custom, Mr. Holmes. Much more trouble than it's worth. If you're looking for a job as a floor walker, I'll hire you.
Has the move to Jermyn Street been advantageous, Stitch?
A bit more money, but I don't laugh so much as I did in Piccadilly.
A more serious sort of clientele comes round here?
They take themselves more seriously anywise. They dress better, more brass, but they're much the same.
I'm not surprised that a man of your experience is undeceived by appearances. This needle seems to have outlived its usefulness. Might I take it?
You're welcome to it. It served me well. May it serve you, though I can't imagine how.
What can you tell me about this hat, Stitch? Anything of interest?
At the risk of dabbling in your line, I'd say the wearer has a oblong head, obviously big, younger man from the blocking. The style and quality bespeak concern, but not obsession with appearance. Colour probably doesn't signify.
And the shop?
De Groot's a competent tailor, imports all his materials from Amsterdam. He serves a comfortable clientele in South Africa.
What can your practised eye tell me about this button, Stitch?
I'm sure you know it's tortoiseshell, has a continental finish, Dutch maybe. The thread is nothing special, sewn to a coat I'd say, not off the peg, custom made, but not too dear.
Available locally?
Not here, I've got the largest inventory in England. Help yourself, you need one.
Fleming's been porter at Magdalen since King Charles lost his head. Marvellous character. Remembers everything. And he's eager to tell it all for a pint or two.
Was Magdalen your college then?
No, my chemistry tutor was a fellow there. I visited his rooms one term.
I've never been clear on your university days. Where did you study when you came up?
I need to rest, Watson. Wake me when we arrive, will you?
Sleeping? That's fine. Wonderful. What about our other inquiries? Any ideas? Do you think Mycroft is still in danger? Are we? Well, I suppose nothing much can happen on a train.
Fleming? Fleming, old fellow, how are you? College closed. Fleming, I say rouse yourself, sir. This won't do, Watson. He requires some hair from the dog that bit him.
It must have been a huge dog. Shall I check his pulse?
No need. Collect a couple of bottles of strong ale from the public house we passed, will you? Mind it's not small beer.
Some porter for the porter. Sorry, Holmes.
Will you have a drink, Fleming? Never while on duty, sir. Now, please move along. You're trespassing on college grounds. Would you oblige us, Fleming, with your opinion? We're evaluating this ale. Happy to assist young gentlemen in the pursuit of knowledge. So for science, as you might say. Excellent. I recognise you, don't I? I'm pleased to think you might. I'm Sherlock Holmes. Of course you are. Never forget a face, Mr. Holmes. Just takes me a bit longer to focus. You're keeping well? Haven't gained a stone since you went down. I read your exploits and beatings. And this is Dr. Watson, is it? Pleased, I'm sure. Even after all these years, my recollections of this place are so vivid. Is that unusual, Fleming? Not at all, sir. We are what we remember. As the bard says, even purpose is but a slave to memory. I need to excavate your prodigious memory, Fleming. May I do that? I enjoy a good mystery. Dig away, sir. I saw a tattoo on a corpse. Something about it reminded me of Cambridge. A view of Trumpington Street. Nothing so definitive. It's a neatly rendered blooming rose. You're familiar with such a figure? If it was engraved on the subject's backside, it might be the badge of the Tudor Rose. The Arcane Social Club? Of course. The symbol of England was their sign. I had no idea those rare birds marked themselves. Since your time, sir. Been a drinking club for more than a decade, carousing and such. Nothing much secret about it. Old boys are ashamed to be associated with the newer members. University may revoke their charter, is what I heard. Is the artist a local man? Jack Canvas in Cheapside designed the tattoo version from an old print drawing. I'm told he recently passed over. Yes, I should have recognized his hand. But my brain was fixed on the subject matter. The delicate petals set along the brambles and the thorns. Unexpectedly lovely. I've seen the painting, of course. As a symbol, the old boys was thinking they were England's best. Some of them proved it, but their successors took to advertising. Trying to convince themselves, perhaps. True quality never commends itself, Mr. Holmes. The Tudor Rose drew its members from the whole university, didn't it? Indeed. Over the years, there's been hundreds of initiates. Do you remember all the Magdalen men? Their names run together now, but I do recognize most of them. Regrettably, I don't have a name or a face. What are these photographs, Fleming? Young gentlemen of Magdalen, Mr. Holmes. I keep the most recent classes on display. Their families seem to enjoy it. I have reason to believe my corpse was a Magdalen man and a member of the Tudor Rose. If he came here after 1860, I may have him in my albums. Could we look through your portraits of the previous classes? But that's thousands of young gentlemen, Mr. Holmes. 100 or more would have joined the Tudor Rose. Would the date of a student's matriculation narrow the field sufficiently? It might. My memory's good, but not flawless. And some of these characters were more memorable than others. I believe this boy turned 19 in June of 1874 and came to college for the Michaelmas term that year. Let me check my photographs. Ah, yes, 1874. A rum class. Bright, no question. But rum. Anybody there who later joined the Tudor Rose? Let's see. There's Dundalk, the Earl's youngest boy. Died in the Transvaal, I heard. And Lawton, he's a lord since his pater passed on. An MP, I believe. Oh, yes, his special friend was Pratt. An orphan came to us from India. Strange boy. Don't know what became of him. And Cunard, he's making his fortune in Australia. That's all, I think. Thank you, Fleming. Very helpful. A pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure to see one of my young gentlemen. Nothing changes very much in Cambridge, Watson.
I'm sure the pace of change is slow, but the aura of immutability is perpetrated by porters and dons. They are eternal. Everyone else is transient. They have an interest in perpetuating the illusion, and your frozen memory assists them.
It was merely an observation, Watson. Excuse me. Pratt and Lawton together. This is too terrible to be a coincidence, Watson. Our corpse is the ex-Thomas Pratt, I'm certain of it.
If you say so, Holmes. I'm a bit baffled.
Cambridge can reveal no more about the present case. We can just make the next train to London. I wish to see Pratt's effects, and then we'll carry the bad news to Lord Lawton. I'm sure those oars haven't moved since I used to visit here.
The very walls appear to have been built up around them.
Not so old as that, Watson, though sometimes I feel it. The oars came here in the year of my birth. We've just time to catch the next train to London.
Excellent. Let's be off.
I'm afraid I carry some deplorable news. Mr. Pratt has been murdered.
How extremely vexing. I wonder if he remembered me in his will. He's 6 months behind in the rent.
You'll have to absorb that cost. He's paid a higher price.
This is very inconvenient. Mr. Mason always said I was too kind for this world.
I'm sure he was a flawless judge of character. Might we look at Mr. Pratt's effects? It can make no difference to the deceased.
As you're not the police, I think not. Even the defunct have some right to privacy. There may be personal items about.
Of a marketable nature, perhaps? Are you familiar with any of Mr. Pratt's haunts, clubs, saloon bars, salons, and such?
No. His leisure activities are a mystery to me. There was his painting, of course.
The flat lacks its own bathtub. Where did he perform his weekly ablutions?
He had rights to one in the basement, but he preferred Neville's in Charing Cross. No doubt a reprobate's delight. All manner of dissipation and depravity are likely to be served with soap and water.
I'm unfamiliar with that particular pleasure palace. Could you identify Pratt for the police if requested?
I should think so. He lived here for more than 3 years. I know his face as my own.
But could you recognize him without reference to his face?
No. But why would I be asked to do that?
Do you know anything about Pratt's years at Cambridge?
Nothing. But he was a university man, that's for certain. I only let rooms to that sort of person.
Did Mr. Pratt have any special friends?
Only Mr. Spacemaker. But I haven't seen him in more than a month.
Spacemaker?
Yes, unusual name, isn't it? Peculiar young man. As pretty as any girl.
Do you have a likeness of Mr. Pratt in your flat that we might borrow?
We did not have that kind of relationship, Mr. Holmes.
What kind is that?
You know very well what kind. The kind that exchanges personal photographs. We were not intimate friends. No one could prove that charge.
I perceive you have a question, Watson.
Shouldn't we find out more about this fellow Spacemaker, where he lives and so on? He might be able to help.
Doubtful, Doctor. The name is certainly an alias. The bearer possesses a basic German vocabulary and a rudimentary sense of humor. Anything of material interest here, Doctor? Using my methods, please.
There's a dearth of personal items of any kind. Address book, writing materials, letters, photos, that sort of thing.
Well observed. You've noted what's missing, though one would expect to find more of that sort of thing in the bedroom. Still, this chamber deserves our closest attention. Watson, we need to peruse the flat. Can you occupy Mrs. Mason?
Would you suggest a sharp rap on the head?
Use your imagination and your knowledge of the distaff nature.
This woman confounds my paltry knowledge, Holmes, but appeals to her vanity might not fall on deaf ears.
I'm sure he thought highly of you and confided in you. Perhaps you have the names of his friends or relations in your flat?
I do not. He was orphaned by the Sepoy Rebellion, and the uncle who raised him has been dead for years. He had no family that I know about. Would the ministry consider paying his back rent, do you think?
Perhaps you would like to freshen up and change your handsome frock.
Oh, why would I ever want to do that?
I'm sure that a chief inspector from the CID will be by directly for a chat. They always interview the most important parties in a murder investigation. You'll need to accompany him to Scotland Yard. There'll be numerous photographers and journalists about. I thought you might like to prepare yourself for the ordeal.
Oh, well, I see. Very thoughtful of you, Mr. Holmes. Oh, being in the public eye is such a trial. Excuse me, gentlemen. Close the door when you leave.
I suspect we'll see no more of her.
Capital, Holmes, capital. The appeal to her vanity was irresistible. It overwhelmed her suspicion that we would make off with Pratt's valuables.
I believe she knows the worth of every item in this flat to the last farthing, and it isn't much. Her exit, like everything she does, is calculated. But let us take advantage of her narcissism. You know my practice, Watson. I'm looking for anything unexpected. Useful items, hat pins.
I'm sure. This certainly falls under the heading of unexpected. Was Pratt a voluminist?
I sincerely doubt it. Merely economical when it was convenient. But these may be of future interest. Evidently, no establishment is so base that its reputation can't be ameliorated. Perhaps one day I shall make a study of match packet advertisements. Pratt apparently patronized the weary punt more than once. I'll just bring this along. Someone may recognize it.
I certainly hope you're not going to collect every piece of paper we come across.
Quite right, Watson. But a recent bill from Nettles and a personal note from the elusive Agnes Ratchet are suggestive. Perfect tool for cleaning the hookah. I suspected this pin never pierced a bonnet or a lady's coiffure. Useful items, hat pins. May I have your opinion of Pratt's decor, Watson?
Bordellos and counterfeit harems of the world could learn a thing or two here. Did the filing clerk fancy himself a Maharaja?
It's an old story. He was meant to be a potentate, but an accident of birth deprived him of his true destiny. You know this odor, Watson, unless I have mistaken your experience.
Opium. The acrid, nearly sickening scent is unmistakable.
The source is obvious. Its significance is less so. The bowl appears clogged with the poppy's viscous residue. Do you recognize this remnant of red cloth?
It looks like a segment of ribbon.
Yes, government issue. The type used to bind official documents. There is no doubt in my mind that Pratt was a principal in the formula's theft. He truly was a fool.
But questions remain, surely. Why would Pratt have stolen it?
Why indeed? And what did he do with it? And where is it now?
And why was he killed?
Fools tend to be foolish more than once. They are as dangerous to their friends as to their enemies. This wax once sealed Dewar's document. I'd bet on it.
Where's the other half?
If I knew, we'd be further along. But you make a nice observation, Watson. It does appear to be nearly a perfect half of the seal. Do you suppose this is a photo of the supposititious spacemaker?
Why do you think the name is intended to deceive?
In life or literature, I'll wager you've never seen it. It's a jest. Spacemaker, or Spaßmacher, means the joker in German.
Would it be interesting to know why an alias was necessary or desirable?
At the least, he wanted to conceal his identity from Mrs. Mason, but the Act of '85 may have been on his mind.
Surely that's pure speculation, Holmes.
Not so speculative, Watson, and hardly pure. People's predilections are their own affair until their criminal actions make them mine. The seal, the ribbon, the paper ash. The evidence is suggestive.
That Pratt destroyed what he stole? Perhaps his nerve failed him, or he repudiated his treachery, but you will say suggestive evidence is not conclusive.
Quite right, Watson. There is a large crime in motion. We must not be distracted by apparent solutions to portions of it. Pratt was murdered for the part he played in the formula's theft. His killer must be sought, but the questions suggested by the theft itself are still more important.
You want to know why the theft was committed and who gained by it if not the thief.
My hat, Doctor. You have been paying attention.
How can I help you, gentlemen?
There are certainly more rank odours, but it is revolting to discover mildew in towels. I'm certain the authorities would deem it less than hygienic. Just a modicum of your garden variety muck. What does this place have against regular applications of soap and water? Who are the habitués of this spa, Watson?
I've heard the young Turks from Whitehall are trying to invest the place with an aura undeserved by its merits. They may be joined by old India hands who simply crave the heat.
Not a self-indulgent crowd, then?
Not necessarily.
Neville's has a appalling taste in tobacco. It's an insult to the patrons.
Men in their condition probably can't tell the difference.
Nonsense. They're enervated, Watson, not dead. Though they soon may be, given what they're smoking. Can you envision Pratt wasting away in such a place?
Without difficulty. Given the style of his digs, this would suit him down to the ground. Perhaps a little on the tame side, but suitable.
I believe Thomas Pratt was a patron of these premises. When did you last see him?
Adrian Russell at your service. Were you thinking of joining us here at Neville's? I can make you an handsome introductory offer.
We'd like a private word about Pratt.
What are the chances? At Neville's, his privacy is my business.
The premises seem lightly attended. What amenities are available here?
We have an exercise room, a steam bath, modern individual steam cabinets, and 2 invigorating cold water plunges. You could do worse.
We should like to see the baths.
Baths are baths. There are several members back there au naturel. They don't appreciate intruders.
Who are the men on the drying couches, Mr. Russell?
Haven't a clue.
You don't recognize your clientele?
I know a nosy Parker from a paying customer.
Perhaps we will become members, Russell. It looks a decent enough place.
Sound thought. Put colour in your frog-belly complexion, improve muscle tone, and you get to meet a nice class of person. All for a modest cost. I'll get your paperwork, shall I?
Of course, we'd need to inspect all the facilities.
Fine, but as I've said, don't pester the clients, and the baths are not available to you at the moment.
I'm not impressed with your choice of tobacco.
And the patrons don't complain.
Perhaps the smell conceals some other scent. Perhaps you are encouraging some less savoury activities here?
Leave off. What about a membership? Think you'd like to join?
When I decide I want to spend my leisure conversing with dunces while smoking bad tobacco and acquiring pestiferous skin ailments, you'll be informed. Have you ever considered fumigating this place? It couldn't help but improve the atmosphere.
Members appreciate the traditional bouquet of odours. Most find comfort in familiar scents. You would also, in time.
Not if I lived 1,000 years. Hot and wet, a perfect breeding ground for mould. Pasteur would doubtless pay for samples of the captive bacteria.
His institute deals only in virulent and contagious forms, neither of which this is.
Perhaps, but you won't deny it is disgusting. I earnestly counsel you, Watson, to touch nothing.
Your concern is appreciated, Holmes, but in this instance probably misplaced. As baths go, this one appears relatively sanitary.
As rivers go, the Thames is cleaner than the Ganges, but I wouldn't swim in either. Point?
Point taken. Sanitary was perhaps not the proper word.
How does Russell strike you, Watson?
A bully, with a patina of gentility. Your inquiry puts him in a bind. He can't boast the privacy that comes with membership, and answer your questions about Pratt without betraying what he's already sold.
I suppose I might inform him that he won't be collecting another penny from the Pratt account. I wish to visit the baths, Watson, with or without Russell's permission.
Fine. Can I help? I would say he looks a rough customer.
Force is odious when subtler leverage will suffice. I'll request a refund on my olfactory senses if the hygienic standards of this place are above reproach. It shouldn't take long to confirm my suspicion. Mr. Pratt has been found dead. He no longer requires you to protect his privacy. When did you last see him?
I can't rightly say.
Are any of Pratt's circle of acquaintances here now? How about Eldridge Whitney?
Can't really recall. I'm not in the recalling business.
If you don't mind, or even if you do, I'll canvass the other patrons.
I wouldn't, unless you like to visit the hospital.
Under ordinary circumstances, which these are not, I might respect your request. And just so we understand each other, your threat is offensive, unlawful, and, if you'll excuse me for saying so, laughable.
We'll see who laughs last, Mr. Fancy Talker.
I'm now ready to inspect the baths, Russell.
No, you're not. You've no intention of joining up.
Listen, you muscle-bound twit. Neville's is in violation of numerous tenets in the Code of Public Health. Mould, mildew, common filth are rampant. Let us pass, or I'll report these unsanitary outrages forthwith, and you'll be out of business by this evening.
You made your point. I'll try to keep it clean, but there's too much for one person to do. Can't find any decent help. I'll accompany you. And remember, don't be bothering my clients. You can't walk about unsupervised, mister.
The name is Holmes, Mr. Russell, and I not only can, I have done. You have been singularly unhelpful, Russell. Do you know nothing of Pratt?
I ain't seen him in days. Now no more liberties on my patch. I got a reputation to protect.
In a moment. How about Eldridge Whitney? Does he use these premises?
No. Beg your pardon, Mr. Whitney, sir. As for you, that tears it. Bloody foreign tricks! Get me out of this muck!
Bajitsu is hardly a trick, Mr. Russell. Watson, make certain Mr. Russell remains aquatic. I've had enough of his interference.
With pleasure, Holmes.
A fortuitous meeting, Mr. Whitney. I am Sherlock Holmes. After you've replaced my towel, you might ask if I care. Considering your position, Whitney, you might curb your impertinence long enough to discover my purpose. Your purpose is of no interest. If you continue to harass me, I will take steps. Naked and enervated? Excuse me, but I doubt your capacity for action. As your attendant is occupied, let's talk about the formula missing from your reading room. That is a ministry matter. You have no claim to my cooperation, and your brother's obvious indiscretion may be actionable. My brother's judgment is not likely to be challenged. Yours, on the other hand... Save your threats. They are ignorant and rude. I speak only on the authority of my superiors, of whom you are not one. At the moment, you are not accused, Whitney. I'm simply trying to gather information. You'll get none from me. I know my rights and my duties. I'll ask you once to reconsider your intransigence. You waste your breath. No, my speech perhaps, my patience certainly. My brother nearly killed, and you stand on some inflated idea of your own importance. You fatuous twit. We'll see whose breath is wasted. Now, Mr. Whitney, please share your observations and suspicions about the formula's theft. Do your worst, Mr. Holmes. I am accustomed to long hours in the heat. You will not trifle with me, Whitney. Tell me what you know.
I recognize extortion when I see it. This is not a joke. I'm having trouble breathing.
You'll have to do better than state the obvious.
I had no part in the initial disappearance. It was not my responsibility. I do my job very well. I know nothing about this.
But if pressed, innocent as you are, you might speculate about the guilty party?
Yes. Question the ratchet woman, the Char. She is an internationalist. Have no idea why she's kept on. Could you turn down the heat?
A small taste of Hades for you, I should imagine. Go on.
Many times I've mentioned security is very lax, very slipshod. She could walk off with anything. The heat, Mr. Holmes, could you?
Where might I find Mrs. Ratchet?
She lives in some East End hovel.
The East End is vast. Where exactly?
Pratt would know. Well, ask Sir Avery. He's palsy with her. Is it any wonder respect for the British Empire is on the wane? She's the Char. I ask you, I mean, for heaven's sake, I don't take tea with a woman.
Fortunate for her. Describe her, please.
She's a plain woman.
Brilliant. Colouring, height, weight, facial shape, teeth, distinguishing characteristics?
Who notices such things about the Char?
If you don't want to be parboiled, you better have noticed something.
On her tea breaks she reads. Everything, reading all the time, classified documents for all I know, and it makes her squint badly. Probably needs spectacles. Are my eyes starting to bulge?
Not to worry, Mr. Whitney. You're a fine shade of lobster pink. When did you last see Thomas Pratt?
I truly can't recall. Except when we pass in the hall or exchange duties at the desk. We had only Nevilles in common. Turn down the heat, will you?
Thomas Pratt has been found dead, Mr. Whitney.
You don't say. Well, nihil nisi bonum de mortuis, but I suspect he had numerous unfortunate habits and the associations to match.
Would you care to elaborate on that obloquy?
The truth defames no one. He was an unhappy man, and I'm sure he indulged in drugs. Died by his own hand, did he?
Hardly. He was assassinated. To punish him and complicate his identification, his face was obliterated. The bullet nearly blew his head off.
Why?
Because he knew something he should not have known. If you're involved in anything you shouldn't be, have a care, Mr. Whitney. Can you conceive of a connection between Pratt's murder and the stolen formula?
There isn't one.
How can you be sure?
I didn't just fall off the back of a turnip wagon. I am mentally acute.
That is palpably false, but for the moment I'll assume you're simply ignorant of a connection. Our conversation thus far has been neither difficult nor painful. It can become both, if you insist.
I've nothing more to say to you on any subject. Just replace my towel and leave.
There are few things I appreciate less than being lied to, Mr. Whitney.
I'll try to remember that.
Test my patience and I'll make certain you never forget it. Could July on the Ubangi be any more unpleasant than this?
Heat appeals to many persons, Holmes.
Laplanders might be happy for the change, I suppose, but only masochists would find it pleasant.
Is anyone whose preferences are at a variance with your own by definition aberrant?
Being the supreme arbiter of right thinking and behavior is a terrible burden, Watson. An awesome responsibility.
I'm pleased your sense of humor has not deserted you completely.
Jenkins, I need to speak with Lord Lawton again.
If I disturb him without cause, Mr. Holmes, he won't come out, you won't get in, and I'll be sacked. He's in that foul a mood since the last time.
Please show me in. I have tragic news for Lord Lawton.
Did his favourite nag break a leg?
A colleague of his named Pratt has been found murdered.
Young Master Thomas. I am sorry. He was a nice boy, troubled but kind. In the old lord's day, he was often here. Haven't seen him in years. No, my lord, I will not. Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson, my lord.
My position requires further reflection. Billiards is fascinating, don't you think? I'm sorry to inform you that your friend Thomas Pratt has been found dead.
Really? How unlucky. We were at Cambridge together, but I barely knew him. You might as well offer your condolences to the ministry char. How did he die? Heart failure?
Yes, it stopped. After he was shot. Twice. In the face.
Pity. He had such a beautiful face.
And a rose tattoo on his backside.
I'm sure I don't know, though I'm not surprised you do. Your type specializes in the nether regions.
Your colleague should know of Pratt's condition and other developments. Where might I find Sir Avery Fanshawe?
He took Brumwell's old pile in Chelsea. Wife is infatuated with redecorating. He'll be riveted by the news, if you can wake him.
And Philip Bledsoe?
Haven't a clue. Heard the unsociable lout has chambers in Gray's Inn.
How about the clerk, Eldridge Whitney? Do you know anything of his whereabouts away from work?
The pathetic sod keeps a cot at the ministry, uses a public bath as his dressing room.
What do you think is the connection between Pratt's murder and the formula's disappearance?
There is no connection whatsoever.
I must now decide whether you are remarkably unimaginative or a liar. Perhaps both.
I don't have to tolerate insults in my own home.
I'm sorry, tact has deserted me. There is no doubt that Pratt's execution and the theft of the formula are related, Lord Lawton. If Pratt was not the thief, he knew who was.
So you say. The problem is, no one, your brother included, has conclusively proved that the formula was stolen.
What a surprise. The body charged with making that determination cancelled its inquiry almost as soon as it began. I ask again why the investigation was terminated.
There is no need to make mountains from molehills. Bring the ministry into disrepute every time some papers are mislaid. Go there yourself. You have my permission. You'll see what sort of place it is. Despite your brother's efforts, it's not terribly well ordered.
You expect the formula to turn up, then?
I think it probable. Well, it's a definite possibility at the very least. A clerk may have misplaced it, or the char, or one of the members. Stop grilling me and go bother them, or better, return to your own affairs.
Just so you know, Lawton, the discovery of the formula would not complete this investigation. We are far beyond the resolution of a simple theft. You neglect this fact at your peril.
If you want someone to bully, bother Fanshawe. Or Silverbridge, he initiated the call for termination. Rake him over the coals. I have nothing more to say.
Your employer was less than forthcoming about Mr. Pratt, Jenkins. I wonder if I might have a private word.
Possibly. Highly irregular, probably disloyal, but possibly. I liked that boy.
I'll tell you of Mr. Pratt's demise. In return, you could answer some questions and let me look about.
Lord Lawton will be out with Lady Lockridge later.
Fine. I'll return.
I'll trade for information about Master Pratt, but there's a higher cost for telling tales out of school and giving you the run of the house. You play a decent game of billiards?
I have a passable game. I'm not really...
I'm a devotee, but one can always improve. If you can teach me a lesson, we could have a chinwag afterward. If you can't, I'm mum. That's the deal, agreed?
You seem quite sure of the outcome?
As sure as the Lord Chief Justice wears a wig. Be in the limelight with the lads at the academy when I tell him I had you over a barrel here.
Is Lord Lawton a music aficionado?
Very devoted to euterpe and terpsichore. Music's the only thing we have money for nowadays. Cylinders, scores, stands, new felt piano tuning and the like.
Perhaps you might stand in my place at the table. You wield a decent cue.
You take neither pleasure nor honour in playing me. It's you he wants.
In that case, I wonder if Jock Mahoney still holds court at St. Bernard's. He may know Jenkins.
As I recall, you two didn't part the best of mates.
True, but I don't hold a grudge. Perhaps we should return to 221B for reflection.
I'm sure I could use some refreshment.